A young boy dressed in bright robes and a rope tied around his waist suddenly woke up from his slumber. When he opened his eyes, the scene he was presented with was almost no different from when they were closed. No matter which angle he looked, he was surrounded by near pitch black darkness with the only visible light source emanating from a very small hole. When peering through the hole and seeing the vast body of water that floated up and down in front of him, he quickly became reminded of his predicament. The boy was in the middle of the sea, floating in a medium-sized barrel with no way to escape his entrapment. This boy's name was Gorilla, and he came from a civilization unknown to the developing world called Urtiga. Urtiga was located in a small patch of land far away from any known continent, and had a total area of around 100 square miles, about 1/10 the size of Rhode Island. And its population reflected that. Only about 50,000 people were inhabited there. Due to its inability to communicate with the rest of the world, Urtiga's civilization was vastly different from the developing nations many of us live in today. All of their food had to be hunted for or fished, and crops were grown in very small quantities. Garments were handmade, and each set of clothing for women and men were exactly the same for the entire civilization. And wealth was much less important to them because they had no governmental structure, central currency, and merely bartered between individuals. But despite the lack of technological advancements, their philosophical and religious background was rich and diverse. The word used to describe their philosophy was called plog, which most closely translates to unmoving in English. Plog's central idea was one of oneness and completeness. If you were a human being living in this realm of consciousness, there was nothing you had to do or achieve in order to prove something to yourself or others. Each person had equal value, no matter their appearance, age, or skills, and so one's primary purpose on a daily basis was to collaborate with other members of their tribe and appreciate the brevity of time in every moment. They saw everything they interacted with, from the people to the trees to the animals to the sand, as one interconnected being. But that didn't mean this way of living didn't come without a cost. 48 hours before Gorilla opened his eyes to his dilemma with the sea, he was enjoying another peaceful day in his village. He had finished cooking dinner for his younger brother and sister and was in the middle of his nightly ritual of solitude and silence. To become more aligned with the civilization's philosophy, it was required that each person spend at least 2 hours daily doing nothing but feeling pure gratitude in the present moment. As he closed his eyes, facing the infinite sea waters in front of him, he started to shift his awareness. He imagined each wave as its own conscious organism that acted in harmony with every other wave in the ocean to help each other reach their inevitable end at the shorefront. He looked up at the moonlight sky and marveled at the individuality of each perfectly placed star. And in his head, he whispered a quiet hello to all the crickets chirping near the waves, enjoying their own time with this strange landscape they got to call home. Immense gratitude filled his entire body. In this moment, nothing else was needed, except for that lingering feeling. For the past 2 weeks, Gorilla had an ambitious itch. As he started to mature out of his youth, he felt the sense that more could be done of himself. The civilization of Urtiga was peaceful, and the beliefs he had been taught about life since he had grown up had certainly left an imprint on his mind. But something in him told him that he was meant to be more. "All right," he said to himself. "Tomorrow is the day I let them all know. It is decided." When the next day arrived, he went to meet with his parents in the village center. His relationship with them was very strong, just like with everyone else in the village, and so he almost knew exactly what they were about to say to his request. Regardless, he marched his way nervously towards their presence. "Mother, father," Gorilla said, "I want to make a change." Gorilla's mother and father were in the middle of building the infrastructure for another set of huts to accommodate the slowly growing population. "And what do you mean by that?" his father said. "Are you in one of those unsatisfied phases again?" "At this point, I don't think it's a stage. You see, I love what Urtiga does, and I'm glad everyone can thrive on our land, but I want to start to improve what we have. I've been thinking, and there must be more to life than what we are doing. We've been harvesting our crops, funneling our water, and acting out our daily routine the exact same for several thousand years now. As we grow with age, our ability to do these tasks improves significantly, so shouldn't we employ that effortless improvement towards our overall potential as human beings?" Gorilla's parents took a short, concerning glare at one another before his mother responded, "Son, who taught you to think like that? Don't you know what the gods of Urtiga will think of you for that proposition?" In Urtiga mythology, it was said that their god, Werida, created the island and its people as a way to express her boredom. Werita and her half-god brother, Wodido, actually lived on the island with the people she created for its first 50 years. She instilled the virtues of wholeness, oneness, and completeness within her people, and gave the island just enough resources with which they could all live in peaceful stagnation forever. But her brother, Wodido, had other plans. His desire for greed and power made him start to create resources for Ertiga like oil and coal, and let those humans closest to him start to utilize them unfairly. Eventually, this imbalance in the power structure of the island ended with Werita having to destroy her half-god brother and vanquish all the resources he created. And ever since then, it's been thought that trying to reach a higher potential, stand out above others, and make progress is the ultimate sin. I know what the gods would say, Gorilla said impatiently, but something within the depths of my soul is screaming at me to hone my abilities and garner more strength. From a couple yards away, the village elder overheard Gorilla's pleading request. He walked over to the family and said, "Young man, let me take a look at you." He observed the boy's thick, long hair pulled back in a ponytail, vicious blue eyes, and slender build. And as he did, the elder's eyes started to light up, and his body started trembling. "This boy, he's the reincarnation of Wodido. He's come here to wreak havoc and corrupt the island once again. We must cast him off this island at once." "Elder, this must be some kind of mistake," Gorilla's father said. "He's just acting out again. You know how our youth can get sometime." "Nonsense," said the elder. "I hereby sentence you to be barreled and to never come back to this island again. Assistants, please help me escort this boy to the shorefront." With their helpless, distraught faces, Gorilla's parents held each other tightly as they watched their son be taken away forever. They were completely powerless in the situation, and they knew that if they were to try and argue with the village elder, he would put a swift end to their entire bloodline. And so, they could only stand and observe as their son had his arms tied together with a piece of rope, was forcefully shoved into a wooden barrel, and pushed into the sea by two men. It was now 4 hours since the boy had woken up in the barrel and remembered his predicament, and the pain from his irregular back and leg posture had cleared any signs of drowsiness from him. He thought to himself, "The villagers have completely distorted Werita's philosophy. If the god of our island was still around, she would have never allowed this to happen." He then took a moment to pray to Werita to help steer his barrel to a destination that would quench his undeniable thirst for greatness. Not even 3 minutes later, he looked through the small hole once again, and much to his surprise, saw a visible piece of land through the ocean's mist. "The teachings of Werita have never failed me. By having faith and trusting the universe's guidance, I am never directed wrongly." Wave after wave pushed him closer and closer to the land until, finally, the barrel washed up on the shore and came to an abrupt halt. He wiggled his hands through the rope using a technique he had learned as a young child from his parents' teachings and kicked the bottom of the barrel with his feet until the lid broke open. As he squirmed his body, slowly inching his way out of the barrel, he was bombarded by the bright sun in the sky, the humid heat that radiated through the sand, and the murmurs from two people standing not too far away. Gorilla's involuntary ocean adventure had led him to present-day Miami, Florida. "Patrick, look, a boy just came out of that barrel," said the girl, who appeared to be standing next to her older brother. "Don't be ridiculous, Maddie. No one came out of that." "Wait, what?" Both of the kids had now directed their eyes towards the barrel, standing in awe. After a few moments, the sister started running towards Gorilla's battered body on the ground. "Maddie, wait for me," said her older brother. She started poking at Gorilla's body, which was laying with his back on the ground right by the shore. He slowly opened his eyes to see the girl and quickly sat up. "Hi, I'm Maddie. What's your name?" the girl said. "My name is Gorilla. Can you please tell me where I am?" "Right now, you're in Miami Beach." "Miami Beach," Gorilla said silently. "Yep, where do you come from? And why were you in that barrel?" "I come from a land named Ertiga. I was sentenced to be cast off from the land by the elders because I sought for a more enriching life. I can only presume that's why my divine guidance led me here." "Ertiga," said Maddie. "I've never heard of it. Hey, Patrick, do you know where Ertiga is?" "I can't say I've heard of it either. It sounds made up. And besides, this dude can speak English. I think he might be just a little woo-woo. Either way, we can't just leave him here. Let's bring him back home and ask Mom and Dad what we should do. That sound good to you, Gorilla?" "I can assure you there is nothing woo-woo about me. But yes, that's fine. I'd like to explore this so-called Miami that we find ourselves in." "Great, then let's make our way back to my home. I'm Patrick, by the way, and this is my younger sister, Maddie." As they made their way off the beach and onto the sidewalk, Gorilla started to experience a culture shock. Tall, thick, windowed structures, moving vehicles with rubber wheels and exhaust coming out the back, and hundreds of people dressed in all different kinds of suits, shorts, and shirts flooded Gorella's five senses. It was so much to take in at once, he nearly stumbled over his feet and fell at the incalculable change of pace. These tall structures, is this where you go to sleep at night to protect yourself from the elements? How are they made? Oh, you mean buildings? Patrick said. Yeah, I guess they're made with a lot of steel, concrete, insulation, wood, that kind of stuff. Do you not have buildings where you're from? We do, but nothing close to this. The amount of resources we have access to are scarce, and what we are allowed to do with them is even scarcer. It seems this place has fully conquered over its natural landscape. Yep, that's America for you. So determined to beat reality that they had to build over the natural world with their own idealized version of it. Despite the negative undertone in Patrick's statement, it was immediately apparent to Gorella that the pace of this city reflected one of consistent progress and improvement. I knew it. I've been guided here. This is what I've been longing for all along. Patrick felt a buzz within his pocket coming from his phone and checked to see what the notification was about. What is that portable device? Asked Gorella curiously. Maybe you really aren't from here. This is a smartphone. It's basically the worst and greatest invention of the past couple decades. I can send messages virtually to all my friends and upload anything I want to this place called the internet, which is where I can access any information about just about anything all within the palm of my hands. Astounded by the thought of such an invention and the amount of innovation required to produce it, Gorella replied, "Tell me, how much value does your society place on progress?" Why, progress is what makes our capitalistic society go round. Let me place you into an American mind really quick. We are taught since a young age that there's always something to improve upon and always something more we can accomplish. Because of this, America has produced the most innovative, automated products and inventions more than any other country. The American dream, as they call it, is the dream that you can become anyone and do anything with enough work and consistency. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, Gorella said. It's what I've always wanted since I was young. To become something greater. Don't get too ahead of yourself, man. There are a lot of downsides that come with this societal structure. They continued walking until they reached the foot of Patrick and Maddie's apartment building, where a homeless man laying on a backpack as a pillow was sound asleep a few yards away from the door. That man over there, does he live here too? If he does, why is he sleeping out here? Oh, no, that man does not have a home, Patrick said. You see, if you are unable to get a job, whether that be due to experience, a poor upbringing, a disability, or drugs, America won't show you any mercy. You basically have to fight for your life every day just to survive at that point, or hope that you can clean yourself up enough to get the money you need. But many homeless people don't have that luxury. Money? Do you mean some form of trading system? Yeah, I guess you could think of it like that, Patrick said. We print these pieces of paper that we all agree have some level of value and use it in order to purchase real goods and services. The actual paper itself has no value though. Gorella began to contemplate this hierarchical, individualized structure of postmodern America. Although he felt this society had more freedom to become anything they wanted, he started to realize the potential drawbacks that came with a system like this. Still, this did not deter his spirit, and he followed Patrick and Maddie up to their 15th story apartment. When he was escorted inside, he was amazed at the architectural complexity of his surroundings. Each object was so ingeniously made by a mind that could only be light years ahead of the majority of Ertiga's civilization. So this is the type of work that can be done when humans are encouraged to increase their power, he thought to himself. My parents should be home within a couple hours, so for now, I guess you can just explore the apartment while I do my homework. Don't go through that door over there though, that's my parents' room. Patrick and Maddie went off to their respective rooms, and shortly afterward, Gorella made his way to Patrick's door. And since it was half open, he was able to see Patrick writing vigorously on a piece of paper. Intrigued by his determination, Gorella opened the door and asked him, "What is it that you are working on?" "Oh, this? It's my homework for English class. I'm currently a sophomore in college, and this was one of the electives I could choose for my major. I'm not particularly fond of it, but I've got to get this assignment done by tomorrow." "Do you have school where you come from?" "Something like that," Gorella said. "For the first 7 years of our lives, we are taught the ways of the gods by our parents. And so, everyone on our island thinks exactly the same, and what we think is that nothing can or should be improved upon. Thus, everybody is treated completely equally, and everyone gets the same opportunities." Wow, that sounds like everything I've ever dreamed of. If that's the case, then how did you end up here in a barrel? As Gorilla explained the story to Patrick, the young American's confusion and frustration started to grow. So you went against a society that ensured you never get treated unfairly or unjustly, all because you had this feeling that you could be doing more with your life? I simply just can't understand that. You can't understand that? What do you mean? Said Gorilla. You have every opportunity at your disposal to create anything you want. You can climb the highest of mountains, you can build the greatest of structures, and you can sculpt and craft your body and mind into anything you can conceive. How could that possibly be worse than what we do on Ertiga? Well, let me tell you exactly why, Patrick said. From a young age, we are conditioned to believe we are worth nothing unless we meet a certain set of standards. It's part of the reason why we start our lives going to school. Similar to your society, we are taught a very strict curriculum that can help with our overall thinking skills, but barely gives us any applicable knowledge in the real world. The real reason we go is because it starts to develop our sense of purpose and direction, with the purpose being that you will be rewarded if you behave and work hard. From the time we start going to school, we are constantly being judged based on our appearance, the way we dress, act, and how well we do in our classes comparatively to everyone else. As a result, cliques emerge from this system. Some people are regarded as the popular kids, which usually involve the ones who are conventionally attractive or have the most money, while others are regarded as the nerds because they are socially awkward, get good grades, and aren't interested in what society considers to be cool. If you aren't genetically gifted, then guess what? You're probably gonna get laughed at. Sure, you can improve your looks by taking care of yourself, but some people, no matter how hard they try, will never feel like they fit in or are good enough due to a society that consistently reinforces these beliefs. Since I was young, I have felt like an outcast. I've never really felt like I've been accepted by any group of people, except maybe when I was in middle school and I had a few friends because our parents were mutuals. So I've been doing everything I can to get what I've always wanted and achieve happiness. Brains don't really impress anybody around here. My grades are perfect, but what I really need is to be financially successful. Then I'll have the freedom and access to anything I desire. So if I'm interpreting this correctly, Gorilla said, your happiness lies in this valueless piece of paper you all exchange? When you put it that way, it does sound pretty stupid, but yeah, most of it does. Might I offer you some advice? Say you were to have all the money you could ever need. What makes you think that would clear your current muddied mind? I ask this because in Ertiga, we have a saying that might be applicable to this. What you want is already within you. No, friends, wealth, and a guaranteed future is not already within me, Patrick replied. This made Gorilla smile before he started to continue his speech. Allow me to explain. In my culture, each desire within the mind is called Gamba. It is part of our philosophy that the more Gambas one has, the more that they suffer from unhappiness. But the problem is, Gambas can be deceiving. At face value, these Gambas might be obvious. More physical prowess, more acceptance from others, more power, more attraction from women. When the reality is, each Gamba is almost always a symptom of a larger, more subtle problem. On Ertiga, we accept that humans are imperfect creatures, and we are born with the traumas our ancestors had to endure just to survive in this plane of consciousness. And so, the way we approach healing each Gamba is by getting in touch with that ancestral root, pouring infinite love into it, and shifting to a present view of immense gratitude for what we already have. To me, it sounds like your Gamba is not just wanting friends, but rather wanting to experience a deep connection of love. A connection of love that you've never been able to give to yourself due to other people's perception of you and what you think it means to be worthy. Your parents, are they usually around? No, not really, Patrick said. They're usually too busy working just so we can afford this nice apartment. You know, I really wish we just lived somewhere less expensive so I could spend more time with them. Ah, this makes sense. It appears they've instilled these ideas of how important it is to chase this external piece of paper into you, too. In other words, they've passed down their Gamba. Now, here's what I mean when I say what you want is already within you. This longing for more of what you've never had can be found in everything you have at your disposal in the present moment. That love you want to experience from others, it's something you can in fact give to yourself. In the same way that you would take care of a girlfriend or best friend, you can do those same actions for you. You're just convinced you don't deserve those things because society, your peers, and your family, aka those things outside of you, have convinced you that you aren't good enough to have those things until you reach where you want to be. Chasing happiness is a never-ending hamster wheel, and the truth is, happiness does not come from having great possessions, but from having few wants. By eliminating these wants, you can be content even with the smallest of external external items and the simplest of daily routines. And I bet if you really did get all these things you wanted, you'd be in almost the exact same predicament you find yourself in right now in this apartment. Nothing would really change. Patrick took a minute to take in the words of Gorilla, but ultimately was unconvinced. You see, the problem I'm having here, Patrick said, is that all of that is so easy for you to say. You live on an island where nobody disagrees with anybody, you have tons of close family and friends, and your daily tasks to survive are extremely basic and rooted in equality. I cannot escape this system and feel all those things you are describing unless I get at least somewhat wealthy. You're saying all of these things acting like some messiah, and yet your desire for progress and power overtook your own ability to be happy with having few wants, and you ended up here. Maybe you should have taken your own advice and stayed happy on Ertiga. I can only imagine how much more content with my life I would be if I had lived in a corrupt-free societal structure. The two young boys sat in silence for over a minute. Finally, Gorilla said, "It seems I've misjudged you. We aren't so different, you and I, and in fact, I think we both have the same dilemma. We suffer from this innate human need to never be satisfied. For you, it's the need for progress, innovation, power, status, and wealth that is the source of your unhappiness. And for me, it's the fact that I've never been able to pursue all of these things that is what is making me unhappy. In the end, we are both in the same mindset." "So, what does that mean then?" Patrick said. "That we're forced to be unhappy for the rest of our lives unless we stop pursuing anything at all and have absolutely no desires? If neither of us are content, which way of living and which setup of society is the absolute best for happiness? It's the natural state of what it means to be human, it seems. I cannot even truthfully say that everyone on Ertiga is happy with having to act and think the same without pursuing a higher level of excellence. There must be something we are missing here. Some type of blind spot." The boys contemplated their stalemate of minds for what seemed like nearly an hour, until finally, both of their facial expressions resembled that of discovery. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking too?" "I think so let's try to explain. Given the human condition, there must be some sort of balance between our two vastly different lives that can help us achieve the optimal living experience. To make everyone conform to a certain set of strict rules, act exactly the same, and give them no space to develop themselves and never pursue any progress is not the key. But similarly, an imbalanced hierarchical structure which makes the rich richer, the poor poorer, and always places the human's value on their material possessions also leads to suffering and unhappiness. The way I see it, becoming happy is like beauty. Just like the idea of beauty, some features of achieving happiness are objectively right, while others are subjectively right. There are objectively great things that can all make us happier, like being in good health, having some social interaction, and creating some sense of purpose, but how each person goes about optimizing these things, as well as the rest of their life, is quite subjective. Learning to discern between the two is what's most important, and all the while, we need to accept the subjective rights of each individual. I'm not sure how we could go about setting up a society which functions in this way, and I'm not sure if we will ever fully figure it out, but we do know that misunderstandings, sufferings, and misfortunes will always exist, no matter what, Patrick chimed in. And the goal is not to vanquish these from society completely by making others adhere to the exact same standards. No, the human mind is much too complex for that. For us, at least, it's the complete acceptance of the pursuit of more, while never forgetting what we have in the present. I'm sure you and I will always have that small itch for something greater and something new, and that itch may lead us to feel unsatisfied. But the paradoxical thing about happiness is, if we can be satisfied with the fact that we will never be satisfied, we will, therefore, always be satisfied. When we voluntarily accept this chase that we've been on and continue to go about it not because we think we will be happier when we get to the end of it, but because the act of chasing something itself brings pleasure, then I believe we can truly start to be more happy with our lives. Yes, Gorilla said. And all the while we let go of the expectations we have for completing that pursuit, we learn to work with the system we are all placed in, and we increase our gratitude for the present moment by changing our perspective on what we do have, just like Ertiga does. Because the grass is, more often, not greener on the other side, but rather wherever you choose to water it. Thus, the ultimate balance within this paradox of happiness is achieved. The two boys exchanged a smile before standing up to embrace a warm hug. Ah, man, thank God. Or Werita, I should say, for bringing us together, man. I feel like I can finally relax in my life. And I as well, Gorilla said. Opening myself up to your culture has given me the perspective and mindset shift I so desperately needed. I should be getting going now, though. But where will you go? You don't have anywhere to stay and you can't go back to Ertiga. You haven't even met my parents yet. Well, I'm not sure where I'll go, Gorilla said, or if I'll really enjoy the beliefs that make up this society more than my home. But I may as well figure out a way to achieve that balance of progress and contentment while I'm still here. And I'm not sure I can really experience what that is like if I'm continuously getting help from you. Perhaps our paths will one day cross again soon. In fact, I'm almost certain that they will. Without exchanging any more words, Gorilla left the apartment and started on his own paradoxical, satisfied but unsatisfied pursuit. Since I've gotten into this space of self-improvement and philosophy and psychology, I've always been very curious to understand how our beliefs are shaping our perception of reality and how our societal constructs reinforce those beliefs. And one of the best ways I can get information on that quickly and easily is Shortform. For those who aren't familiar with Shortform, they are producing the highest quality guides to nonfiction books. They basically extract all the key insights from a book and clearly and concisely explain them, plus they offer smart commentary and analysis on top of what was already written in the book. And what really separates Shortform from all of these other book summary platforms is the fact that they give you exercises to perform with each book. This is the most important thing to actually understanding what you're learning is applying what you've learned, and Shortform does that in a really unique way. One of the best Shortform summaries that has helped me to understand societal concepts and structures and how they affect us more is the book Mythologies. And in the summary, Roland Barthes has a really interesting way of describing this called myths, and these myths basically shape the way we view the world and hold power over us when society's dominant institutions, like the government, the advertising industry, or Hollywood, craft these messages for us. I found it very insightful. It was kind of a way to peel back the veil of reality, or what I thought reality was within Western society, and make me understand why certain things affect me more, so definitely go check that out if you plan on joining Shortform. 3 genres I think you guys would really enjoy from the platform are self-improvement, psychology, and philosophy. So if you're interested in getting access to thousands of book guides for the price of just 1 book a month, then you can click the first link in the description, which is shortform.com/Cole, and you're gonna get 5 days of unlimited access for free, plus an additional 20% off their annual premium subscription plan. Go take advantage of that offer, and thank you Shortform for sponsoring this video. And as always, thank you to all my patrons on Patreon who are helping to support this channel. If you don't know what this is, it's a platform separate from YouTube where you can get exclusive content from me and talk to me one-on-one over the phone on there. Link in the description to that. And if you like these short stories that I write that all have life lessons in them, here is the whole playlist to all the ones I've created, so you can go watch all those and get inspired, maybe make you think a little bit, and I hope you enjoyed. Love you guys. Peace.